Hello fashion lovers, on this tutorial we're making this armless maxi flare gown with cowl neck, and if this is something you're interested in, you want to keep on watching, please subscribe. I'm using crepe for this and I have about 3.5 yards, and this is actually a requested tutorial, so if you are one of those that requested for this video, you want to keep on watching. So I have my pattern paper here because we're going to draft a pattern for this, and my basic sewing tools. Let's get right into it. Now first, I have my pattern paper that I just cut according to the size that I need for now, and I'll just go ahead and draw my starting line, which will also serve as the shoulder line. Next, I'll go in by half of my shoulder measurement and I'll make a mark right there. And at that line, I'll also go in by the neck width of 3 inches, and I'll come down by 2 inches for the neck depth. Now this is just for the back pattern because I'm using this pattern for the back and front piece. And at that point, I came down by 1 inch for the shoulder slope. Now I'm just going to connect this, the neckline and the shoulder line. Mind you, we're creating this pattern and I'm using it for both the front and the back. You're going to understand more as we proceed with this video. Next, I'm going to take all the positions and I'll start from the bust point. So I'm using a bust point of 8 inches. This size is a petite size, so you want to adjust this according to your own size. So I came down by 8 inches for the bust point, and then I also marked the under bust point and the first waist point. Yes, and then the full length of the upper bodice. So I just basically added 1 inch after the under bust point and then 1 inch for allowance. So I'm just extending the same lines I have here to get an even line. And from the bust point, I came up by 2 inches away from that point to get the chest line. You know, to get your chest line, you just have to move 2 inches above the bust point to get the chest line. So that is what I've just done. And I'll go ahead and draw out all of these lines straight. And I'll just go ahead and label this as the chest line, the bust point, the under bust, the waistline, and the allowance. So this is what we have here. Next, we're going to create the armhole. And to get that, I'm just going to repeat the shoulder measurements on the bust, on the chest line, and I will connect these two lines together. But to get this point, I'm supposed to go down by my armhole depth. So this length here from the shoulder points to the chest line is too small for the armhole depth. So I just came down by 1 more inch and I will mark it right there for the armhole depth. So if you're working with a bigger size, there won't be need for this at all. So yeah, I'm just going to find the midpoint of the armhole depth. I hope you get this at this point. So I'm just going to find the midpoint and make a mark right there. And I'll go in by 1/2 inch. And then on the armhole depth line, I'm just going to measure a 1/4 of my bust measurement. That is the bust measurement divided by 4, and I'll make a mark also. Now I'll just connect the 3 dots together to get the armhole. Now we have the armhole. Next, because this pattern will not involve any dart making, so we are just going to take our all-round measurement. So on the bust line, I'm just going to go in by the bust measurement, which I've already made a mark right there. And on the under bust, I'll go in by the under bust measurement divided by 4. I'll do same for the waist, and I'll repeat the same thing I have on the waist on the allowance line. So that is what I'm just gonna head to do right now, and I'll go ahead and connect all of this. So that is that for the drafting of the upper bodice, because in the inspiration the upper body stops directly under the bust. So I will just go ahead and cut this out. And before I do that, I remembered I've not added allowance on this pattern, so I just went ahead to add 1/2 inch allowance all around, but on the side I added 2 inches allowance. And I'll just go ahead and do that and cut this pattern out. And if you have watched to this point, thank you so much. Please consider subscribing and liking this video. It will help me grow, and you can also drop whatever tutorial you want me to do next in the community post. Now this is all we have right here, and I didn't add zipper allowance to this pattern because remember I said we're using it for both the back and the front. So I'm just going to pick this up, and at the under bust point I will fold it over. First I folded the allowance, the 1 inch allowance I gave, and I will fold it over directly on the under bust, but I'll leave about 1/2 inch, as you can see right here, so I can cut out the back pattern, because remember the back pattern is always shorter. Now this is the fabric I'm working with, and I'll just go ahead and place my pattern on it, but this fabric is not steady at all, as you can see, so I'll just go ahead and cut out exactly the one that will be enough to cut the pattern. Now I'm just going to align this, the center front facing the point where it's not slit open. So because this is the back pattern, I'm going to mark the zipper allowance of 2 inches before placing the center front of the pattern. So that is exactly what I'm doing right now, and I'll go ahead and pin this down. And on the waistline, I'm going to go in by 1/2 inch and blend it in to avoid zipper bulge. And after that, I'll just pin this down and cut it out. Now this is what the pattern is looking like, so I'm just going to press this down and slit that point open because it's the zipper allowance. And I'll go ahead and remove the pattern. I'll unpin this first. And I'll go ahead and notch exactly where the zipper allowance starts from. So this is what the back pattern is looking like right now. And then for the front pattern, I'm going to fold this over directly from the under bust point also, but this time around it's going to be longer. The 1/2 inch is going to be longer than the one I left for the back pattern, as you can see here. So I'll just go ahead and cut this part out. Remember, if you look at the inspo very well, there's this band at sitting directly from the under bust that connects it to the flare. So that's what we're going to use this for, and I'll just go ahead and make marks to indicate which part is facing the upper bodice. So that is what I just did right now. And from the bust point I came down by 1 inch. From the chest line, sorry, I came down by 1 inch, and I placed my French rule like this, and I will just rule that line to create the cowl effect. Now I'm going to slit this through right to the end, but we are not cutting off everything. Just watch carefully as I'm doing this. So this is what we have. Now we have the front pattern, and I'll go ahead and also place it on the material, the fabric I'm using, and we're going to go ahead and create the cowl effect now. But first I'll pin this down just to make it steady. So this is what we have, and then we're just going to open up this because this is a slasher spread method. So the more opening you have is the more cowl effect you're going to have, that is more drip at the front neckline. So I made a cowl length of 8 inches. So that is what I'm using for this tutorial, and I'll go ahead and pin all of this down just so it stays in place. So next I'm going to trace out all of this point so it can be easier to cut out, because as you can see this fabric is not steady at all, it's just all over the place. So I'm tracing this out so it will be easier for me to cut out. Now directly at the shoulder point, that point right there where you are seeing where I placed the ruler, I'm going to make a straight line right there, and that will serve as our new neckline. So I'll just fold over the paper like that so the line can reflect under it. So that's basically it. I'm just going to cut this out. But first I'm labeling this so you don't get confused. That point is the shoulder, that is the armhole, that is the side, that is the hem, and that is the neckline. This is the shoulder line, the armhole, the side, the hem, and the neckline. And remember, this is one fold of 2. So I'll just pin this down just so it can stay in place, and I'll cut this out. And if you have watched to this point, please consider subscribing. Thank you, and don't forget to like. Now this is what we have right here, and I'll just unpin this so you can see a preview of what it's going to look like. Now when I pull the cowl down, that's what it's going to look like. Now to get the band, I'm just having this fabric right here that I folded in 4 because we're making for both the back and the front, and I'll place the pattern on it, and I'll go ahead and mark 1/2 inch all round before cutting this out for stitching allowance, of course. So this is what we have for the band, and this is the remaining fabric I have. So we're going to cut the skirt part, which is the flare now. You can see how I'm folding over this because this is a 180-degree flare, and I've just folded over once like this. So as you can see, to get this flare, I'm first going to pin down this fabric just so it will stay in place. And then to get this measurement, what I need is the waist measurements, the all-round waist measurement divided by 2, not by 4, by 2. So that's what I just did right here, and I'll look for the space that can accommodate that on the skirt or the flare. So you can see how I'm doing that. So I'll just go down and I'm going to stop at the points that can accommodate it. And I also included 2 inches extra allowance for the zipper and sewing allowance. So I just marked that point. That's exactly where the measurements could accommodate on the tape. So from that point, I'll just measure from the tip to the point I made to see how many inches I have. In this case, I have about 13 inches. So I'm just going to go ahead and mark 13 inches all around to the edge, so I can have that circle, and I'll just connect it. So that will be the top of the flare. That is where I'm attaching to the band. Just watch carefully as I'm doing this so you don't get confused. Now from that point, I'm going to take the full length of the dress, and you're going to minus the upper bodice measurement, of course. So when I did that, I had about 38 inches or so. So I'm just marking this all round now, placing my tape from the point where we have that semicircle right over to the end of the fabric. Make sure you're using the same measurement so that you can have an even hem. So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm just marking that length all around, the full length all around. Remember to add allowance of 1 or 2 inches for hem allowance. And I'll just go ahead and cut this out. And thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the sewing part of this tutorial. Please don't forget to subscribe and watch out for the part 2 of this, where we're going to sew this dress. And yeah, I'll see you in the next tutorial. Bye.